I'm not coming back. I've met someone better, and I've already moved your things to storage. That's what the message said. I was standing barefoot in the kitchen of our condo in Des Moines, still dressed from work, sipping the last of my late-night coffee. It was 11:42 p.m. on a Thursday. My wife Morgan was supposed to be in Palm Springs on a girls' trip. Instead, she sent me a breakup text with a screenshot showing $118,000 transferred from our joint savings account into her personal one. No apology. No explanation. Just those 2 lines and a digital receipt. I put the phone down. I didn't scream or throw anything. I didn't even feel surprised. My name is Garrett Nolan. I'm 54 years old, and I've spent the last 25 years working as a forensic accountant. I specialize in noticing what other people miss. My job is to find fraud, track bad data, and trace every financial inconsistency back to its source. And for the past year, those inconsistencies had been showing up in my personal life. Morgan's weekend retreats that grew longer, new outfits that never made an appearance around me, late-night phone calls that ended the moment I walked into the room. I noticed it all. I just didn't want to believe it. Until now, I picked up my phone again and texted back 2 words. Good luck. Then I opened a secure folder on my laptop and made 1 call. Caleb, I said. When my brother answered groggily, remember that contingency plan we built 5 years ago? He hesitated. Yeah. You sure? I'm sure, I said. She just made her move. After hanging up, I glanced at the wedding photo still hanging on the wall. It was the last image of us left in this place. I should have taken it down months ago. I booted up my encrypted financial dashboard and began reviewing asset positions. Morgan thought she emptied me. What she didn't know was that the joint savings she drained was a surface account, one I left exposed on purpose. A decoy. The real assets were buried behind layers of LLCs. Family trusts and accounts. She never knew existed. I'd started separating our finances years ago when the spending increased and her interest in our relationship faded. I never confronted her. I prepared because reacting late costs more than preparing early by 1 a.m. I had frozen every joint account, disabled her card access, and initiated a fraud claim with my bank. I uploaded documentation to my attorney, including a copy of the transfer Morgan made while I was sleeping. Then I sat down and finished my coffee. 15 years of marriage dissolved in 2 sentences and 1 click. But this wasn't the end. It was the start of a carefully laid response. She thought she caught me off guard, but I've spent my entire career catching people who think they're too clever to get caught. And Morgan was about to learn that I don't panic. I execute. I should have seen it years ago. Scratch that, I did see it. I just chose not to act on it right away. That was my mistake. When I met Morgan Carver, she was 34. Vibrant, and always the center of attention in any room she walked into. I was 38, and recently divorced from a short, forgettable marriage. At the time, I was all about growing my independent forensic accounting firm. She thought my work was boring, too many spreadsheets, not enough glamour, but she liked the way my life looked from the outside, stable. Professional, full of potential. I told myself it was a balance, her energy and my structure. A year after we started dating, we got married in a quiet courthouse ceremony. I thought we were building something solid. I funded the launch of her yoga studio. I co-signed on her dream car. When she wanted a bigger house with better lighting for social media content, I agreed. For years, I nodded and signed checks while she built a brand, and I let her believe I wasn't watching. But I was. When you're trained to notice small details, it becomes second nature. The first red flag wasn't the outfits or the distance. It was the way she dismissed my work. I don't need to understand the details, she'd say. As long as we live well, that line stuck with me. Not because of what it said about me, but because of what it revealed about her. My father warned me once while we were rebuilding his back porch. He put down his hammer and said, "Son, If your partner doesn't respect how you earn a living, don't expect them to respect what you build with it. I brushed it off then, but I never forgot it. 6 years into our marriage, I quietly started protecting myself. I established limited liability companies and family trusts. Nothing shady, just smart. I opened crypto wallets for overseas clients' accounts she didn't know existed, and every time she swiped our joint card for lavish retreats or influencer meetups, I took note. She'd say, "You wouldn't enjoy it. It's all green juice and sound baths." Maybe so, but I knew distraction when I saw it. Last Christmas, she forgot my birthday. The next day, she handed me an expensive watch and said she'd been so busy with the studio's expansion. That night, I finalized the paperwork on the last piece of my contingency plan. I wasn't planning for betrayal. I was acknowledging the patterns. I didn't want revenge. I wanted insurance, a firewall. Now that she'd made her move, every hour she spent feeling smug was one more hour. I was locking down the life she thought she'd stolen. She never took me seriously because I was quiet. But in accounting quiet, people notice everything, and the fine print she never bothered to read. That was the foundation of the wall she was about to crash into the morning after Morgan's message. I woke up to silence. Not the kind that lingers awkwardly, but the calm, focused quiet before action. I made my usual cup of coffee and sat down at the kitchen island, the same one we once picked out together from a catalog she'd flagged. It didn't matter anymore. At 6:15 a.m., I logged into my personal financial management system custom-built for my firm, but adapted years ago for personal contingencies, just like this one keystroke, and my pre-coded protocol, Alpha, initiated. In seconds, joint bank accounts were frozen, credit cards suspended. An alert was sent to my banking contacts flagging Morgan's $118,000 transfer as suspicious. Within 30 minutes, the transaction had a temporary hold pending investigation. At 7 a.m., I forwarded a detailed summary of the event to my attorney, along with a formal request to file for divorce on grounds of financial misconduct. The email subject line read, "Initiate full response." Then, as the sun crept up behind the skyline, I got in my car and drove to the storage facility Morgan had mentioned in her message. The code she gave worked, and I entered the unit. Inside were 2 large boxes labeled Garrett. Clothes, some old books, my laptop, just enough to say she hadn't thrown everything out, but not enough to feel like anything of value remained. All the photo albums, letters my father's vintage. Omega watch gone. She didn't just want to leave me, she wanted to erase me. That realization shifted something inside. This wasn't about heartbreak. This was war, and the opening salvo had already been fired. I drove to a coffee shop nearby and opened my laptop, logged into licensed financial databases I used professionally. In 20 minutes, I had every available public and gray area record on a man named Dylan Reeves, the fitness influencer Morgan had been tagging in more posts than I'd initially cared to notice. The someone better she left me for. Turns out, Dylan was drowning in debt. 3 maxed-out credit cards, a car lease he couldn't afford, a business loan on shaky terms. But here was the kicker. Morgan had co-signed on a car loan with him 2 months earlier. I leaned back in my chair and sipped my coffee. A calm certainty washing over me. This wasn't a fling. This was premeditated, planned. She'd been funding their exit plan with my money for over a year. Back at the condo, I packed a small bag and booked a room at a nearby extended stay hotel I needed space to move to. Morgan didn't realize that by going nuclear, she activated something inside me that had been dormant for years. This wasn't emotional anymore. This was strategic. She made her play, assuming I'd fold. What she forgot is I'd already played this game 1,000 times before, just never with someone I once loved. Morgan didn't leave me for a man. She left me for an image, a brand. Dylan Reeves was all protein shakes, filtered selfies, and fake success stories. The deeper I dug, the more obvious it became. His fitness business, Harmon Physique, was little more than a shell. On the surface, glossy Instagram pages, motivational hashtags, a rented gym suite with LED lights. Underneath, unpaid loans, overdrawn accounts, lease defaults. What stunned me wasn't just the financial instability. It was how deeply Morgan had embedded herself into it. She wasn't just a lover. She was an investor. Over the past year, she'd quietly funneled over $80,000 from our joint account into Dylan's business. I found LLC documents listing her as a silent partner. She'd co-signed a $175,000 equipment loan, leveraging our marital assets to qualify. She never told me, never even hinted. Dylan must have thought he'd found a financial savior. Morgan told him I was wealthy and uninvolved, that I wouldn't notice or fight back. That mistake would cost them both. I compiled every record tax filings, lease agreements, loan applications. Some had her forged signature beside mine. Others used my social security number for better credit terms. Dylan had no idea Morgan was putting him in a legal landmine field. And Morgan, for all her cleverness, had forgotten the one thing that defines people like me. We never move without evidence. I sent the findings to my attorney. Within hours, she filed for emergency asset protection. Any asset tied to Morgan or our marriage was now under freeze. The courts were notified. The banks flagged the loans. A countdown had begun, and neither Morgan nor Dylan knew it yet. That evening, I stopped by Harmon Physique. The gym was busy. Music blasting clients, stretching cameras, recording every sweaty lunge. Dylan was front and center, barking encouragement like a motivational speaker. He saw me and smiled, mistaking calmness for weakness. "Garrett, right? Heard a lot about you." I bet I replied, handing him a sealed envelope. "You should read this tonight." "What is it?" "Everything you didn't know about your business partner." I turned and left without waiting for a reaction. As I walked out, I saw Morgan's photo on a promotional banner, yoga pose, sunlit smile. The caption read, "Powered by Purpose." The irony hit hard. Her purpose had always been power. She just picked the wrong accountant to underestimate. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't post on social media. I tightened the noose quietly, one clause at a time. Morgan built an empire on my silence. But now silence was her greatest threat. He was taller than I expected. Dylan Reeves had the posture of someone used to being admired. Broad shoulders, fake tan. The calculated charm of a man who thought his smile could close any deal. He greeted me at the entrance of his gym with an outstretched hand and that influencer confidence. "You must be Garrett Morgan's told me a lot about you." I didn't shake his hand. "We need to talk privately." He hesitated, but then led me past rows of posing mirrors and overpriced protein displays into his office, glass walls, fake leather chairs, and a vision board that looked like it was designed by an intern with Pinterest. So he said, gesturing to a seat. "What's this about?" I didn't sit. I dropped a folder onto his desk. "This is everything. Morgan did with your help, loans, business leases, co-signed credit lines, all using my name, my assets, or our marriage as collateral." He flipped through the papers, face tightening with every page. "She told me the accounts were joint," he muttered, "that you were checked out, that she had access." I shook my head slowly. She had access to a decoy account. Everything else was protected. "But you co-signed loans using forged marital guarantees. That's called financial fraud." He straightened up. "Look, man, I didn't know. I thought I'm not here to argue," I said calmly. "I'm here to inform the banks are already moving. That gym equipment you leased collateral. They'll seize it. The business loan. It's being called in, your credit lines, frozen within 48 hours. He looked pale now. What do you want from me? Nothing, I said. I'm not interested in you. I just want my name cleared and my assets protected. You were a pawn, but if you interfere or try to delay anything, that's when you become a defendant. He sat down hard in his chair, jaw slack. She said, You were quiet, passive. Just a numbers guy. I am a numbers guy, I said, turning to leave, and your numbers don't add up. At the door, I paused. One more thing. My father's watch. My family photos. She took them when she moved out. I want them back. He didn't answer, but the look in his eyes told me he'd understood. That night, a courier delivered a box to my hotel room. Inside my father's watch, a few framed photos and a note with no signature. I placed the watch on my wrist, stared at the photo of my parents on their wedding day, and for the first time since Morgan's text, I felt something solid. This wasn't about revenge. It was about restoration. I didn't need to destroy anyone. I just needed to reclaim what was mine, and remind them both that consequences still exist even in a world obsessed with likes and followers. Monday morning, I arrived at my office before anyone else. I poured a black coffee and reviewed a set of case files unrelated to my own disaster, forcing my mind to switch gears. But it didn't last long. By 8:07 a.m., my assistant buzzed in Garrett. Your wife is here. She's insisting I looked up, unsurprised. Let her wait 10 minutes. I made her wait 20. When I finally stepped into the reception area, Morgan was pacing in her usual designer athleisure hair, perfect sunglasses pushed up like a crown. We need to talk, she said. I nodded, guiding her into a meeting room. She opened with performance. There's been a mistake. The accounts are frozen. The money. It wasn't a mistake. I cut in. You moved $118,000 without authorization and triggered a fraud alert. Her smile faltered. It's our joint account. I'm your wife. Soon to be ex-wife, I said flatly, and what you did qualifies as financial misconduct. That money was earmarked for taxes and property maintenance. She tried another tactic, softer. Now, Garrett, don't do this. We can work this out. I was just confused, caught up in something new. I leaned forward. This isn't about confusion. You took from me, lied to me, and used our marriage as leverage for someone else's failing business. You didn't just break a vow. You committed fraud. Her eyes flared. You're blowing this out of proportion. I deserve half of everything. Smiled. Cold. Half of the joint account. Sure. But that's not all there is. And the real assets, you were never on them. You never even knew they existed. I protected myself because I saw this coming. She stood, voice rising. You can't do this to me. I remained seated. I didn't. You did it to yourself. And if you're thinking about lawyers, go ahead. Your threats don't scare me. I've already filed for divorce. I've already frozen the relevant accounts. And every loan you signed in my name has been flagged with the banks. She slammed her hand on the table. You won't get away with this. That's the thing. Morgan, I said, standing. I'm not getting away with anything. I'm standing exactly where I need to be on the right side of the line you crossed. As she left the office, she hissed, This isn't over. I watched her walk out. Maybe it wasn't over legally, but emotionally. The moment she weaponized trust for her own gain, the bridge between us burned. Now all that remained was dust and signatures. The first call came Tuesday afternoon. My attorney Cassandra didn't bother with small talk. The bank has completed their internal review, she said. They've confirmed Morgan forged your signature on multiple loan applications and used marital status to secure business financing for Mr. Reeves. I closed my laptop and leaned back. That's the confirmation we needed. It is, she said. We'll be filing for emergency injunctions on all accounts tied to Harmon Physique. The district attorney has also been notified standard procedure in a fraud case exceeding 100,000. I thanked her and hung up. 30 minutes later, my phone vibrated with a message from Dylan Reeves. "You need to back off. Morgan doesn't deserve this. Don't make it worse," I laughed quietly. The irony of a con man warning me not to press charges was almost too much, but I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the message to Cassandra. By the following morning, I received confirmation that the banks had frozen Dylan's business accounts. His gym was functionally paralyzed, no payroll, no access to funds, no card processing. That afternoon, I took a drive by Harmon Physique. A sign taped to the glass read, "Temporarily closed due to system error." I parked across the street and watched him pacing inside, phone pressed to his ear, visibly unraveling. He caught sight of me. Our eyes met through the glass. No words, just understanding. He finally knew what it felt like to be outmaneuvered. That evening, Cassandra called again. "They've offered mediation," she said. "Morgan's attorney wants to avoid criminal prosecution in exchange for a settlement," I nodded. That was fast. "They've seen the paperwork. They know we'll win. They're trying to minimize damage. We scheduled mediation for Friday. In the meantime, I filed to recover the rest of the funds she withdrew and submitted documentation proving she used marital status to secure a $175,000 loan. I never authorized, Cassandra had prepared it all. I just had to sign. On Thursday night, I received another text, this time from Morgan herself. "We need to talk." "Please, don't do this." I ignored it. She wasn't reaching out from guilt, just desperation. She thought a few words could undo the truth. But I wasn't interested in apologies. I was interested in consequences. The next morning, I arrived at the courthouse conference room with Cassandra by my side. Morgan was already there, sitting rigidly next to her lawyer, designer suit, pristine, but her eyes hollow. Before we begin, Cassandra said we'd like to submit this into the record. She slid over 3 documents, the forged loan application, the recorded bank transfers, and Dylan's signature, confirming his knowledge of the funding source. Morgan's attorney read each one, face blanching. "We'll need a recess," he said quietly. Morgan didn't look at me. For 15 years, she'd expected me to stay passive, to roll over quietly. But this time the accountant struck first, and she never saw it coming. We returned from the recess an hour later. The mood had shifted. Morgan's lawyer was pale, avoiding eye contact. Cassandra remained calm, perfectly composed. Morgan stared at the table. Her hands folded tightly. "We're prepared to settle, her attorney finally said. Cassandra nodded. "Our terms haven't changed. Morgan returns 80% of the misappropriated funds, relinquishes any claim to Garrett's trust assets, and assumes full liability for debts tied to Harmon Physique." Her lawyer hesitated. "And in exchange, Garrett won't pursue criminal charges, and he'll waive claim to the yoga studio and any personal effects she retained." Morgan finally spoke, voice flat. "And Dylan?" Cassandra glanced at me. I answered. "Dylan's issues are his own. He can deal with the banks. I'm not responsible for his mess." Silence. Then Morgan signed. The sound of her pen scratching paper echoed like thunder. I followed, initialing and signing where Cassandra pointed. With each stroke, I felt the weight of years lift off me. The marriage was over, not with bitterness, not with violence, but with a ledger balanced and justice served. We walked out without a word exchanged. Later that afternoon, I returned to the condo. The place felt empty but clean. I boxed the last of Morgan's things, left them with the doorman, and scheduled a locksmith. That night, I opened a bottle of the bourbon my father once saved for milestones. I sipped slowly, watching the lights of Des Moines flicker below. In my inbox sat a message from Cassandra. "Divorce finalized. All assets protected. Case closed. 2 weeks later. I moved into a craftsman-style house on the edge of town. Simple, sturdy, real, no designer finishes. No staged photos. Just me, wood floors, and the quiet hum of a life rebuilt. My brother Caleb stopped by one Saturday to help rewire the garage lights. "You know, he said tightening a bolt you could have buried her in court made her pay every cent I could have," I said. "But then I'd still be entangled. This way, I walk clean," he nodded. We worked in silence after that, comfortable in the rhythm of new beginnings. I later heard Morgan moved to Phoenix Dillon's gym, was repossessed, and rebranded by a national chain. Their social media feeds went dark. Their image collapsed with their plan. I didn't gloat. I didn't follow their downfall. I just lived. And each morning, as I drank my coffee and opened my laptop to a world that was now mine again, I remembered one thing. Some betrayals don't deserve revenge. They deserve resolution. Quiet. Firm, final. Looking back, I realize the most powerful lesson I've learned isn't about money or even betrayal. It's about foresight and self-worth. For years, I ignored the warning signs, excused behavior that should have raised alarm, and let my silence be mistaken for weakness. But preparing in quiet doesn't mean you're passive. It means you're smart enough to act when it matters most. My profession taught me to notice details, but life taught me to protect what truly matters: your peace, your values, your dignity. In the end, I didn't seek revenge. I chose resolution. I didn't yell, threaten, or beg. I enforced boundaries, defended the life I built, and walked away clean. That's the advice I'd offer anyone listening. Don't wait until betrayal strikes to value yourselves. Prepare wisely, speak clearly, and act firmly when the time comes. If someone shows you who they truly are, believe them. And when they try to take what's yours, don't let anger lead you. Let clarity guide you. Protect your future with the same care you give your past. And most of all, know this: healing isn't loud. It's quiet, steady, and earned. One decision at a time.